Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? All right. First thing I need to do is to find out, Dan, you cool? You just raising your hand to find out if you know how to raise your hand, or are you doing okay? Okay. Uh, it is now exactly 12:30, so even though I meant to be here a little bit before 12:30, sometimes students have needs. So I'm Darren York, and I'm broadcasting from the podcasting room in the Center for Teaching Arts and Technology on the top floor of the Harriman campus in the library. Really glad to see all of you here. It looks like we've got Dan Hyder, Emily Delozier, and if anybody doesn't know Emily, she is filling those big steps from Susie Backstrom and doing a great job. We got Johnny, I think that's probably Johnny Jones, Joy Gowan, Kathy Rhodes, also known as Dean or VP of the Week, and Michelle Jones. Of course, we've got Nicole, who's helping me to guide through, Robert Benson, and Terry Gergen. So it's good to see all of you here. If I do anything funky, please don't be shy. Just tell me. This is very informal. And today's topic is the parade of courses. Several instructors over the course of the years have asked, you know, could we peek inside other teachers or other instructors and professors' courses to see some of the cool things that they do? And very often we're very kind of shy. I think that a lot of times we are afraid to show our courses. We treat them like dirty little children when in fact they're actually pretty good. And many of the Rhone State courses have some great stuff. So let's just jump in and see what it is that we've got today. The first thing I'm going to show you is chronologically, it makes sense. Think about the first impressions that you make on your students when they enter into a course. And that really doesn't matter whether it's a web course, hybrid or blended, or just a traditional course. When they come into Momentum, what does it look like? What does the homepage look like? And I called on Gloria Drake, but really there were probably 10 different people I could have shown. Gloria Drake always makes a concentrated effort to have a really big, visible, clear picture and note in her news item. And it doesn't take very long to put that in there. And that just guides her student and says at the very top, to get started, go to content. This is what you need to do first. And then also some contact information. I included a picture of one of my courses as well as something that you got from one of hers. When they do get to the content section, the first impression that the student gets is, wow, this is cool. At the very top, the module is labeled Getting Started in This Course. Very clear, very easy to know. This is where we're going to start. And notice how, lined up and logical all of those first steps are, including something as small as how do I turn off a pop-up blocker if I don't know how. So to me, that's some really interesting ideas about how to get students comfortable at the very beginning, especially students who aren't so savvy with technology. Now I'm going to zip through just a little bit more and talk about what are some other things that you could include either in content or on the opening homepage. Of course, you want to have your syllabus. Deans get a little fussy if we don't have our syllabi in our content. But you also might consider having either a welcome video, 2-3 short minute video, which of course you could, blatantly promote in the podcasting room. You could come up here to the podcasting room and create that, or even just do it right there on your desktop. I also wanted to call to your attention, remember how clear the labeling system was for Gloria. That, I mean, she quite literally, and I'm going to back up, one of the things that she has in her third spot in the first module, quote, important first assignment, do this now. If you ever wonder, are my students understanding what they need to do? That type of labeling, even though it seems kind of condescending, it's actually really smart because then they don't have to wonder. Also, don't get so caught up in the forms and the syllabi and everything else that you don't communicate your expectations to your course. And of course, anticipate ahead. How do they get in touch with CTAT? How do they get in touch with the help desk? Who do they call for what? And what do they need to do when? Because many students, they just don't know at the beginning, especially those first and second semester freshmen. And lastly, good idea to include in your getting started. How do they contact you in email? Whether you want them to email you in RadarNet or inside Momentum, what are the steps and the clicks so that they can get there quickly? Now I'm going to move on to after first impressions. Another thing that I've noticed is that there are a lot of different ways to set up a homepage. And this is an example of Elizabeth Lewis. I don't know of anybody who has a classier, cleaner, nicer homepage than Elizabeth Lewis. And there are several people who've got good ones, but I just love this one. Notice that what she's done is set up her own homepage so that it has only what she wants. No clutter, very clean, very balanced, and it's just downright pretty. I really like that. And a lot of people will say, well, I don't know how to do that. How do I set my stuff up to do that? And so let's talk about how would you change the colors of a course. It's actually very easy. When you first log into Momentum, just look to the right of each of the courses that are listed in the My Roane State Courses box, and you'll see that little bitty tiny pencil. Go ahead and click on that, and when you do, it will carry you over to a page that says Course Offering Information. And down at the bottom, if you choose the top one, which is dark color, you can click on that and change the course to any color that you like. That's a quick trick, but even though it only takes about 20 seconds, it makes a big difference on just the aesthetics of your course. And notice, to back up, notice that Elizabeth has set her course in such a way that her color matches the picture that she inserted in News. Another thing is, if you do want to put a picture, a note, those kind of things in News, notice how easy it is to do it. First, if you ever get tempted to do something that everybody talks about called widgets, don't do that. Just skip the widgets and go straight to News. Because if you look at that plus sign that's located in the upper left-hand corner of the News, that's an easy way. You just click on that little green plus and you can get started. Insert a news, insert a picture, and insert maybe a little note all at once so that your homepage looks really, really good. Also, if you do decide you want to customize your homepage, the clicks there are actually pretty easy. You just want to click on Edit Course. And once you get to Edit Course, one of the options there is Home Pages. You can click on New Homepage, name it, save it, set it, and then you can design it however you want. Now, one of the things I want to show you is once you've set up, okay, this is the homepage I want to create, all you have to do is just pick where do you want to put stuff and what do you want to put there. So you just click Add Widget, left panel, or the header up at the top or so forth. Now, how's everybody doing? Do we have any questions so far? Just checking in on you. Okay, I'll assume that means you're doing all right. Now, the next thing, notice that many of the courses that I'm going to show you, instructors have renamed the tools. And Dan Hyder is an example of that. Dan and I set up a course called the Capstone, which is a comprehensive examination of all of the things that his students should know over the course of his class. One of the things that I did to set that area up is to rename certain tools so that it has a more personalized, customized feeling to it. The easiest way to do this, get yourself into Edit Course, which is always, have you noticed that that's always the first step? Edit Course. And then once you get to Edit Course, one of the options there is Tools. You just click on that. And then the picture to the right, I highlighted the example of Dropbox. Dave Rath and many other people have renamed their Dropbox as homework or assignments or something like that. That way students are less confused. You feel like you personalized your course a little bit better. And that all of that is, those are good things. And then I think probably one of the things that I wanted to impress, when I look at courses, this is a completely subjective decision as to what rings my bell and makes me go, ooh, I like that, or ooh, that impressed me. But very often, I think many instructors sell themselves short. Joy Gowan, Betty Glenn, Becky Andrews, I could probably name about 20 people who really impress me because whenever I go to their email center, it looks like this. That they are constantly, continuously having a conversation with their students, both as a group and as individuals. If I go to somebody's email center and I see they're probably only sending out 1 or 2 emails per month, that kind of scares me. Go trolling. Send out an email from the class list to everybody and just say, hey, this is an email just to see how you're doing, you know. And you can actually do that with your traditional courses, web courses, blended. It doesn't matter. I'll also say that fast replies to emails, that impresses students probably more than any other single thing that you could do in a web course, a blended course, or a traditional course. Students truly crave quick, effective feedback. And so I'm just kind of throwing that out there. I would imagine most of you probably already know that. So that's just a reminder of what you already know. And then one of the many things that has impressed me as I go through courses, many of our professors here are very creative and have great personalities, and they let that personality come across in the course. You can learn and have fun at the same time. And I think Dave Rath, Brian Wilkerson, and Pat Pay all do a really interesting job. One of the things that I just howled with laughter when I saw Dave Rath's discussion board, he was teaching a course called Business Ethics. And he had an entire discussion board on, you know, how appropriate is it for young people to, you know, to look at the music industry today, and their quote unquote role models are people like Lady Gaga, Katy Perry, who kissed a girl and liked it, and so on and so forth. And he incorporated that sort of fresh, new, this is happening right now, into his discussion boards, and I love that. Pat Pate and Brian Wilkerson do very similar things. Now, granted, we don't all have the luxury of teaching courses that can have that type of relevance, but I think if we try, we might get a little closer than normal. So I was just going to call that to your attention. And then one of the many things, when you get right down to it, whether you've got a traditional course or a web course, you got to have some content. More and more as we move into this technological society, just having a syllabus up on the wall and not much more, and saying, okay, you know, read these 15 chapters, take a midterm, take a final, and good luck. It's really just not something that many students can handle. I'm not trying to say that we should dummy down our courses, but think about all of the things that you could do in a traditional course or in a web course that would help your students to learn. And this is an example of several different instructors, many of which, you know, or many of whom I consider to be just amazing good professors. Maria Barriga, Shannon Meadows, Johnny Jones, and I'll include myself. I won't sell myself short. For each week, think about a systematic, logical list of, I want to have all of these things for my students to be able to study and review. That doesn't mean that students will go through every single one. For example, for the icon or the picture that you've got up on the screen, there's a to-do list, a series of assignments. Well, just about every student's going to do that. Then you've got an overview, which is just a broad chapter summary, get the main idea. Some students will skip that. Probably not a good idea, but they might. But then you've got learning objectives, a PowerPoint in two different formats, a short outline, a detailed outline. And by short outline, I mean just keywords, electronic flashcards, vocabulary, terms, glossary. And then maybe, if you really want to get ambitious, create some learning objects, which you could create right here in CTAP with the assistance of Nicole White or with me. And then maybe some mock quizzes to give them a feeling for the difficulty level that you as an instructor want to pursue. I myself follow that exact same format in every single week so that students always know this is what's going to be there. And they quickly figure out, you know, let's say that I've got a student named Bethany and she's very visual. There are going to be certain things in that list that she's going to rely on more than somebody else, like, say, you know, Bruce, who is not so visual, more verbal. And they sort of custom tailor and choose the different things to help them to learn best. Not every tool is going to work for every student, but if you provide more than enough on the buffet, then they all get a little something to eat. Now, I'm just going to walk you through some of the different things that we just talked about. This is an example of a weekly to-do list. And granted, it doesn't have to be pretty and have a picture. This one does, but whatever. This is an example of a chapter overview. Learning objectives, and I'll admit that's becoming more and more of a thing that accreditation agencies are looking. That do you have learning objectives for your course? Do you have learning objectives for individual units? And are they lining up? That's really impressive to somebody like SACS or WACS or an ABA accreditation for a paralegal or so on and so forth. Allied health would fall into that same category. And of course, the PowerPoints. Now, let's admit, if we admit to ourselves, we probably included PowerPoints not so much because they're the best thing in the world, but because students expect them, and very often they come pre-packaged with the textbook, or it is a good chance to get across your main ideas. Now, you don't want to over-rely on PowerPoints or only have PowerPoints, but I will admit I like either including PowerPoints in the double format, PowerPoint and PDF, or if you have to choose, you probably better go with the PDF format. Here's why. Because it's a little printer friendly. And if a student gets home and doesn't have PowerPoint or doesn't know that they can download PowerPoint Viewer for free, then they're going to click on the PowerPoint. It's not going to open. They're not going to know what to do. Whereas with PDFs, that's pretty much a universal thing. PDF represents Adobe Reader. And that's something that just about everybody's going to have. And now I'm just going to flip through and let you see some of the other things. And this is the last thing. If you really do know that your students, whether you're teaching a traditional course or a web course, really wouldn't matter. You know for a fact, if you've taught it once or twice, when students get to this part of the course or this part of the chapter, they have trouble. For example, in my classes, a lot of times it's correlations and scientific research design. When you get to those kinds of things, that's really where you want to prepare either a podcast, an audio capture of the lecture that's short and focuses on that topic, maybe create a learning object. And all of those things are actually very easy to create in CTAT. Just come up to the podcasting room, let us help you, and we can walk you through it. And this is a picture of a literal learning object that my students have to work through in abnormal psychology. They learn about the DSM, they click on each little section, and it probably only takes them about 12 minutes to go through the whole thing. It's short, it's tight, they've got the time to explore into a deep dive, and I think that it makes a huge difference on the amount of material that they understand and retain at the end of the course. And I could probably prove that by doing some assessments. And then the last thing, which this is more soft than technological, but if I could only encourage instructors to do one thing, I would encourage them to set high standards. It's counterintuitive, but more and more research has emerged, especially at two-year community colleges and especially at colleges that are technological. We very often assume that our students want us to just come in, give them an easy A, and send them out the door. And the exact opposite is true. The very student who might whine or get aggressive if you set high standards, that's the very student that you're probably not going to retain overall no matter what you do. And the others have invested their time, their money, their scholarship, whatever, and they really do want a good, challenging, interesting course. Don't ever be afraid to raise that bar high, and don't ever spend 80% of your time on the bottom 20% of your course. Focus on the ones who are logging in, coming to class, studying, reading. They want more. And their biggest complaint, both in high school and in college, on anonymous surveys, is that they're bored. They want a challenge. So give it to them. And I am very, very impressed. Yes, actually, the learning object was used by Articulate. And it creates a flash-based, well, I'm just addressing a question that popped up. It creates a flash-based learning object. I'll admit Flash is kind of becoming not so cool right now. But so far, Articulate's worked out pretty well for some of the instructors who've come up here and created them. And it's, we've got the license, so you may as well come up here and help me to help you to create a learning object. And any other questions, just type them into the chat, and I promise as soon as my 40-year-old eyes can see that tiny little font, I'll address the question. I would like to thank very much all of the instructors who granted me permission to go browsing through their courses. It takes a lot of guts to do that. I don't know that I'd let somebody do that with my course. And I'd also like to say that there are probably 40 or 50 instructors that I could praise or parade in front of you. There are many, many great teachers here. I think community colleges do great things. We just often don't sell ourselves very well. Um, and I'd also like to say that if you feel like that one of your colleagues might benefit from this, please know that we are archiving this and that he or she can access the archive by a link that we're going to send out in campus email. So now I'm going to just open it up and see, are there any other questions that you have? Anything that you would like to know more about? Um, for example, one of the questions I would think that would be common is not just how did you make the learning object, but how long did it take? And the answer is for a typical, 5 to 10 minute learning object or 5 to 10 minute podcast, a good rule of thumb is that it's about double the time. So let's say that, you aim for 5 minutes. It's probably going to take you about 10 to 15 minutes to create it. But that's actually not such a high intensive amount of time. Robert Benson asked, does everybody know about the peer review process? What I'd like to say is that we have a pretty active peer review process in place. I would imagine most of the people here, but not all, know about what that means. Instructors come forward and say, I'd like to have this course reviewed by people who have already had their courses reviewed. And you look for common problems, challenges, but more importantly, ways to sort of beef up a course, make it leaner, meaner, smarter, slicker, to promote the content better or what have you. And each course is unique. You're always fighting a very different battle. The thing that I'd most like to say is that a peer review sounds really scary, but it is a great way to get good ideas, whether you're a reviewer or having your course reviewed. It's just been invaluable. When Dave Rath finished his first course review, he just leaned forward and said, I was dreading this so bad, but this was really, really cool, and I'm glad I did it. And I think most of us have had that experience. I'm very grateful to have had my course reviewed. Any other questions? And if you guys want me to open up your mics, or if you'd rather just chat, I don't remember how to open up their mics. I see, I was right on it. And if you want to use a mic to ask a question, you just go ahead. If you want to chat and type into the chat box in the lower part of the screen. Thank you. That's very kind of you to say. I'll admit I don't think I put anywhere near the effort into preparing this the way that I should have, but it is something that I wanted to do, and I've enjoyed doing this. I think many instructors like the idea of being able to see real peers, people they know. It's just so much more relevant. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I'm just sort of letting people chat and type. So we're seeing, ooh, we got two typing at the same time. Nicole brought up a really good point. Let's imagine that you wanted to do an audio or an audio video podcast. Maybe put a little small video into your course or something, or a little lecturette. We've got Camtasia. We've got Camtasia is really good. I'll admit, if I can learn Camtasia, anybody can learn Camtasia because that's not my forte. I'm not really good at that kind of software. And I learned it and I really enjoyed it. I took to it fast. Good for you, Emily. Emily said that she's looking forward to trying out some of these different ideas. And I'll admit, technology is always evolving. There are always new things. I saw something the other day about creating an entire syllabus that is graphic and visual in nature. Either a mind map syllabus or a multi-layered video syllabus. And I thought, whoa, now that sounds kind of cool. So I may be playing with that over the course of the next couple of weeks, see if I can incorporate that into my course. Very good. Joy brought up a great point. And that's something that I should have mentioned. Joy Gowan, Pat Bailey, and several other instructors have used something called the Live Room, which is a free standardized tool inside of Momentum or D2L. And the Live Room just allows you to do something very similar to what we're doing right here. It's a lot like Adobe Connect, and it allows you to sort of have some one-on-one or one-on-two tutoring, and it's got a whiteboard, chat. It doesn't have all of the buzzers and whistles, but it is certainly a good, intensive way that you can do some tutoring. And many students crave that one-on-one attention. Just because they took a web course doesn't mean that they shouldn't be able to benefit from things like the Learning Center or individual office hours with an instructor. And the Live Room is a great way to do that. And Adobe Connect can do the same thing. George just also brought up the point that if you have a touch screen, you can write on the whiteboard just like in class. And that's becoming more and more the type of tool that's moving forward. I looked at a really neat tool over the weekend or over the course of this week, and it's a website. You don't have to register, and it's free. It's multiple devices. You could be on an iPhone, iPad, Android, PC, Mac, doesn't matter, any kind of computer. And it allows information to flow back and forth between the instructors and students, including drawing. Like if you wanted your students to draw, and you can poll them, ask them to raise their hands, true false questions, quizzes. It had a lot of really neat features. So I think more and more that's kind of where distance education is going to. That we got students who are scattered all over the world, and you want to try to sort of bring them together and build those connections. So good point, Joy. Very good point. Okay, well, I don't want to keep you. I promised you, or I tried to promise you, that this would be a 15 to 25-minute little brouhaha. So welcome to my hoot nanny. And I'm so glad that you came. My biggest fear was that this morning I was going to get in here and like nobody at all. So I appreciate that you took time out of your very busy schedules. And I don't think there's any higher compliment than for somebody at Rhone State to give you their time because we're all so busy. So thank you very, very much. And if you decide that you need to have a follow-up question or you want to know a little bit more, like say about Articulate or some of the other things we use to build learning objects or to build podcasts or things like that, please just send Nicole an email, send me an email, or our boss, Susan Sutton. And I always have to pause because I'm afraid I'm going to call her Susan Seaton. Just shoot us an email. We usually respond pretty quickly. And we really appreciate everything that you do for your students, our students, and the school. Thank you very much. And you guys have a great day, okay?